You're listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. Weppaaaa, this is your boy, Al Mega. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders podcast. And today we have an amazing guest for you guys. I mean, homie is in the business, a rising and shining star. I mean, you've seen his work on Spider-Woman, All New X-Men, and a whole bunch more. He's worked on several, processes like Dark Horse and Oni. But right now, he is with Comicsology the Originals with a dope story that is inspired by some family secrets. And oh man, this comic book feels like a movie. Let me tell you, I mean, if this is his life, thank goodness he survived. Let me bring the one, the only, the legendary. That is hopeless. Weppaaaa, how you?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for coming on and chit chat about your journey, your tide, and of course this fire book. She's running on fumes. I mean, just to tease a bit, like seriously, brother. Based on your story, is this why you decided to call yourself Dennis Hopeless?
Well, I mean, I'm 3 years old in the book, so it's mostly my parents' story.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, it's a fictionalized version of what happened when I was 3 years old in 1984.
Oh my God, you only 3 and 84, making me feel old. Anyway, all right, so let's reel it back just a tad for those that are just unfamiliar. Tell us a bit about yourself, where you're originally from, and my question that I always need to know: what was the first thing in fandom that you ever fell in love with?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably Star Trek: The Next Generation was the first
Really?
fanny thing. My dad was really into Star Trek, and we were able to watch that together. And my it's interesting because I didn't have a really super close relationship with my dad, which you'll kind of understand if you reach he's running on fumes.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of my passions in life came from him and the things that we did share together. Like the reason I got into comic books is because my dad used to like break into people's barns to see if they had anything that he wanted to try to buy off of them, like old cars and stuff. And he broke into some barn once to see if there was a car in there, and he found someone's box of old 70s and 80s comics, and he brought them home to me. So my first comics were like this stolen box of comics that dad brought home from.
Yeah, you literally had the hottest comics in the game at the time, huh?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, crazy. So, out of that bunch, as a kid, do you remember which is the one that lit up your eyes, if you will, and you're like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." Or you
There
were
was an
too
old
young to.
issue of
Huh.
Firestorm that I remember getting super early on, and then it was a Dark
Love that.
Shadows #1, which was in like from the TV show from the 70s that was in there that I'd never heard of before, but it had vampires in it,
Really?
so I thought it was cool.
Okay. Yeah, I'm down with the Firestorm for sure. That was my boy too. I dug the look of the character. I mean, yes, I'm Latino. Hot head kind of matches. He should have been Latino. All
Yeah, he did.
right. So talk to me then about So were you kind of seeing what happened and based on what going on in the story yourself? Did you have a tribe in your geekdom? What was your journey growing up that led into your creativeness, or was your creativity your outlet?
Yeah, I think my creativity was my outlet. We lived kind of it was in a suburb, but we lived out in the middle of nowhere where there were no other kids around. So all of my friends at school, like, they lived in subdivisions and they'd go outside and play baseball. I would go outside and stick a stick down my shirt and pretend to be He-Man and beat other trees with it. So it was whatever I could come up with in my mind was kind of how I entertained myself. I think that combined with the love of genre fiction that I got from my dad, that gave me a creative outlet as a child that turned into what I became.
Excellent. So how did you even get into that road? Professionally, what was your start like?
So I went to Kansas State University for filmmaking, which is an odd choice to make, and
Okay.
especially back when you had to go to LA to do anything. But
Another
when I
LA guy. Oh my God. Wait. So
no, I'm
you
not
knew?
an LA guy. No, I'm
Oh, you're
from
not.
Kansas.
All
Yeah,
right,
I'm from Missouri, and I went to school in Kansas. And when I
oh, okay. I was
graduated,
gonna say.
there wasn't a lot of work to be had in
So
making
you had.
movies, which is what I wanted to do in the Midwest. And I
Okay.
moved back to Kansas City after school and got a job at a comic book shop.
All right.
And then I met an artist, and I was like, "Oh, well, comics you can make anywhere. Like we could make my short film
Ooh.
ideas into comic book pitches," which we did, and they went nowhere. But that's kind of how I broke in, is realizing it's going to be a lot easier, especially in 2003, 2004, to make
Okay.
comics here in the Midwest than it is to make movies in the Midwest.
Ooh.
And yeah, I had fallen back in love with comics. It was a great comic shop in
You
Manhattan,
said
Kansas.
2004. Let me throw that number at you. That's 20 years ago, right?
It's obnoxious, right? Yeah, my kids make me feel old all the time, so I've gotten used to it. But yeah, so when I started reading comics again in college, it was like Kevin Smith was on Green Arrow, and
Okay.
I really liked the Damian Scott Batgirl that was happening around then. And then Preacher had just ended, so the guy that ran the comic shop gave me all those trades, so I got into
Oof.
that and
Gave you.
realized,
Oof.
yeah,
Oof.
yeah. So all that stuff was really inspirational and got me back into the hobby. And then yeah, just a couple years later, I started working on pitches with Kevin Mellon, and that led to Gearhead, which was my first published book in 2007, I think it was,
Okay. All
and
right.
then went from there.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. How exciting was it to land that first opportunity in the business?
Super exciting. Yeah, we sent out, we made the pitch. We actually made the whole first issue because I don't
Nice.
know why, we felt like that was the thing to do. So we had an entire issue, and I remember the very first New York Comic Con, and I ran into Eric Larson, who was running Image at the time, and I like handed him the book, and he flipped through it. He's like, "Yeah, send it to me. This looks pretty good." So we sent that to him, got a rejection from Image, and then just kind of started looking for email addresses at different smaller publishers to send it to, and we sent it to Sean O'Reilly, who runs Arcana, which is like a
Yeah.
Canadian publisher, and when we sent it to Sean, his response was just, "This looks cool, Sean." And we stared at that for a couple days before we
Yeah.
realized
Okay.
he had attached a contract to the, like, that was his response.
Oh, you didn't see the attachment.
So we didn't even get that we had an offer. So yeah, we were super excited
That is.
at the time, and that promoting that book and like going and hanging out at the Arcana booth kind of got us into the comic convention world, where we did a lot of networking, and that my comic career and all of my relationships in comics built from there.
Were you doing Comic Cons even prior to doing that? For pitching, as a fan, did you ever attend, or only
No,
professional?
Kevin, the artist, my buddy,
Yeah.
had been going since he was a little kid, but my family was more of like a car show family. So when we went to conventions, it was to look at hot rods. Uh, but yeah, my very first show ever, I believe, was San Diego Comic Con the year before Gearhead.
Oh,
I
that's a
went,
good
and
one.
that's an insane one to open on.
Yes, it
So yeah, I
is.
did that, and then the next year I did the very first New York Comic Con whenever the fire marshal shut it down, and you couldn't get in on Saturday. I was at
Oh
that
yeah.
show. And then
Hey,
yeah, for those
my
first
brother
couple
made
years
an
in my career.
entrance. My
Oh yeah,
little brother made an entrance, boy. As soon as, cause we were there that first year that they did it, I was excited. Man, let me tell you, they opened the doors, and as soon as we walked in, I don't know how he had boots on that were probably too big for him. He basically did a split in front of everybody on a trip, and all you hear is the whole crowd go, "Ooh!" He's like, "Help!" That's the way you enter New York Comic Con, folks.
yeah, it is.
All right, so let's start talking about this, because I know you done awesome stuff. I mean, how did you even get into, before we move into this awesome, dope, like, I need to know. This is a movie. I'm telling you, folks, you guys have no idea. But so you did this thing for Arcana. All of a sudden now, move on a couple of years. You're working with Marvel and other companies owning Dark Horse. I mean, how those opportunities come along? How did you start navigating the game? Did you find it easier, to navigate once you had that first opportunity, or what?
Well, once you had a book, it was easier to network. So like Kevin and I went to up to a dozen shows a year for the 5 years after Gearhead came out, that first book. People, I met Ryan Stegman that way. I met Chris Somney, a bunch of the Chicago guys and local Kansas City guys I met through doing cons. And through that process, I would do pitches with different artists. So I did probably 12 or 13 different, just like 5-6 page pitches on different projects with different artists. And for one reason or another, all of them fell apart. Like either at one point, Phil Hester and I co-wrote a serial killer story, and Patrick Reynolds was drawing it, and then he got
Ooh.
scooped up by Dark Horse to go do Hellboy when he'd done about half of it, and just never got
Oh,
back to it. So the book
oh,
never came out.
that
So
sounds amazing. Yeah,
yeah, so
Pat's
like
art is crazy. Yeah.
yeah, so like 8-9 years of that go by while I'm waiting for Kevin to finish our follow up Love Struck, and I had all of these like half finished books that were, someone had done pitch art or someone had done half an issue and gotten, and then it fell apart. And I was frustrated because I felt like, okay, well, Gearhead's my first thing, but I've gotten better. I want to show editors more than that. So I put together this pitch package, or this like sample package that was all of those little dead projects I'd done. But editors aren't allowed to look at stuff that's not published. So
Yeah.
I made logos and made up upcoming publication dates and just picked publishers. So it looked like I had all this work about ready to come out. And I sent that to all my favorite editors at Marvel and DC. And for like 10 months I heard nothing back. And then after like almost a year later, Alejandro Arbona at Marvel emailed me back and said, "Hey, I've had this on my desk forever and I finally looked through it. It's really good. Would you want to pitch something?" And around that same time, Jason Aaron, who's a local Kansas City guy and a friend of mine, was doing his CBR column. I don't remember what it was, Beard Missives or something. He interviewed me about what it's like to try to break in, like what it's like to hustle and to do all this work, and like nobody knows you're about to break in. And then the whole thing was, Dennis has done all this work, and because of that, I know eventually he'll make it. Well, Axel Alonso saw that, and he had just become the editor in chief of Marvel, and he read that pitch package that I had sent to everybody, or that sample package. And so then by the time I had the phone call with Alejandro about pitching, Axel had told him to hire me. So in that first phone call, I got to do Legion of Monsters, which was my first mini. While we were working on Legion of Monsters, somebody, I don't know who, another writer dropped out of X-Men season 1. Alejandro was editing that, so he brought me over to do that. So I got those first 2 Marvel books from that, and then X-Men season 1 was a New York Times bestseller, so I was kind of off to the races at that point.
Hell yeah, that must have felt great waiting so long, and that
Yeah.
break came. Weppaaaa, homie. Woo! That's amazing. I dig it. So, all right. So, you're working with the big 2 and whatnot. I mean, with Marvel doing your thing. So, how's it work? Now, how's it feel not working? With like somebody like Comicsology and being able to tell, a much more personal story, if you will.
It's been really great. I didn't realize how burnt out I was until the Pencils Down happened during COVID, and then I'm stuck in my house with my 2 at the time 5-year-old sons who weren't in school for a year.
Oh,
And
I'm so sorry. That's where the white hair came from.
yeah, absolutely. And I realized, okay, I got to do something to have a creative outlet, or I'm gonna hurt myself in the backyard doing yard work all day. So I started working on these long dormant creator-owned projects, and I realized from doing the horror book with that I did last year with Vault, Hard Eyes, and then working on She's Running on Fumes, which I'd had in the hopper for 10 years and just never got to. I realized, like, oh, I'm kind of sick of writing about superheroes punching each other. It's fun to do this other genre stuff and stuff that's more personal. So yeah, it was a real mindset shift for like, oh, I can just tell the story I want to tell. I don't have to save 8 pages of punching in each issue or fighting. So it really did. It changed my mindset and put me on a path to doing passion projects again, which I hadn't really done since those early days, all that unpublished stuff where I was just pulling stuff out of my gourd and making comics out of it. It's been fun.
Awesome. I mean, look at this beautiful cover right here for number 1. I have a preview for issue 4. All right. That's what we got from Comicsology. So you can check that out to tease you. Now you're going to have to get the first 3, but this is a 6-issue run, correct?
Yes.
There we go. You see, folks. I mean, it's getting crazy. I'll tell you that much. I mean, issue number 3 was definitely one that had me laughing from the beginning, even though it's not meant to be funny. But I'm like, I was just smirking because I'm a big kid and I laugh at stupid shit, literally. So there we go. So who did the cover? This is awesome right here.
Yeah, it's all of the art, covers and interiors are Tyler Jenkins, and then watercolors by Hilary Jenkins. Yeah.
Dope. I mean, look at that. Issue number 1. Then you got, oh man, yo, I mean, badass. We're gonna get into the story, folks. I mean, then issue 3. Weppaaaa, look at that money just flowing, like making it rain, baby, like with like the strip club somewhere. Woo. But again, beautiful art. The covers are fire, and this is the latest issue, folks. It's gonna be available this week. Yes, this week right here. She's Running on Fumes. Número 4, mi gente. You gotta check this fire book out. I mean, and look at it. Talk to us. Tell us, man, because again, when Pamela, big shout out for Comicsology, sent me this. She goes, "Yo, this is inspired by his family's real life secrets." I'm like, "Whoa, wait a minute." So I read this, and then I go back to this comment, like, "Are you serious? This is gangster." So talk to us, like, what's going on, brother? What happened?
Yeah, so I had all these. I was, like I said, I was 3 years old when all this stuff happened, and you're told these family stories, but like all the edges are shaved off when you're little and they tell the stories. So like I knew that we moved down and lived in a trailer on my grandpa's land, and I knew that my dad was in a near fatal car accident. But what I didn't realize until I got older and started to, the details of those things started to slip, and the little elements that I had never put together started to get put together in my brain. It's like, oh, my dad was a criminal before the car accident. Like we had moved to the country because he was embezzling money from his employer, and things got hot. And in 1984, if someone's looking at you, you can just move 2 hours away, and then you're gone, and they can't keep up with you. So I started to put together like, oh, some shady shit was going on. And in talking to my mom about those things over the years, I got, yeah, she was kind of stuck in a really awful situation where my dad was a criminal, and now she had kids with him, and they had this sort of toxic relationship. And in the middle of all that, where she's trying to decide what to do, like, do I really want to be in this relationship? Do I really want to raise kids here? He almost dies, and then she has to become the breadwinner. And then the story, I called it like a true-ish crime, because I have exaggerated a lot of the criminal elements. Anybody that
it's like BMF. I get it, right? They tell you, some of the things may have been exaggerated a tad.
Right. Yeah. And anybody in the book that's not a family member of mine is fictional. So they're
Okay.
based on real people. They might be an amalgam of two different real people, but I'm not using actual folks because I can't get their permission. And the situations in the book are exaggerated, and the time is compressed and different things to make it more of a, to make it more dramatic. But there's a lot of the stuff you would think I made up, like the snakes in the toilet and different things. That's all real.
Yeah, let me say that. Yeah, that scene made me laugh. Cause I would suppose that was you. I was like, oh my God, homie's gonna get his ass bit right now. What's going on? I mean, and that whole issue though, number 3, from beginning to end. That again, just seeing what happened. Like you mentioned, through the accident and the things that's going on with the family. Some things again, it's serious, but it'll make you snicker, especially if you're a big kid, stupidly. Especially how the mom addresses the situations was funny to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and that's how my family addresses it too. Like we have those stories were always told with the humor of hindsight. In the moment it was awful, but we always found the humor. So I'm the narrator of the book. Like me now as an adult looking back on it narrates the book. So I'm able to add some of those lighter perspective moments to a really tense situation.
All right, so I need to know here now. Talk about the collaboration with the artists, and the other creators on the project. 'Cause this being a personal story, this is different from a superhero thing. Now, it's not something that they're familiar with. Because this is, again, your story. How was that collaborative process like?
Oh, it was amazing. So Tyler, I realized that I could do this book when I first saw Grass Kings. Tyler and I were both at Boom at the same time. He was doing Grass Kings, and I was doing the WWE book. And when I saw it, I thought, well, this is what Deepwater, which is what it was called when I was pitching it. This is what it should look like. And so when I got the pitch all written during COVID lockdown, the first person I sent it to is Tyler, who I'm buddies with now, just to see what he thought. Like, this is right up your alley. I know you'll love this. And he called me back and he's like, did you send this to me because I'm going to like it? Or did you send it to me because I'm the perfect artist to draw it? So Tyler jumped on board before I even had to ask the question, which is amazing. And then we got Hilary to come on and do her beautiful watercolors over it, which gives it that like sun-baked, everything's rusting and falling apart Southern Missouri look that I wanted for it. So he was completely on board with the concept from the beginning, and his art is exactly what I pictured in my head when I was writing it. So it was fantastic. Like, the only hard part was that Tyler's so busy and sought after that he was always doing multiple things, so it took a while for it to get done. But it was an incredible collaborative experience. I really enjoyed making this with this team.
Well, excellent. And when you were telling them these stories and they read this, I mean, did they actually like, "Are you serious? This happened?"
Yeah, everybody has that reaction a little bit.
Like, what?
It's funny because sometimes it's the stuff I made up, and sometimes it's the stuff that's absolutely real that blows people away.
Now I gotta know, does your mama know how to for real, take a car out like that, like she's doing in the 4th panel right here? Do you know how to handle that business?
Yeah.
I mean, do you?
Yeah. My dad was very much a hot rod, fixing up old cars kind of a guy. So when I was old enough to look over a steering wheel, I was steering cars that he was dragging around different places. So we all can be kind of dangerous with that sort of thing. Now, whether or not my mom's actually hot wired and stolen cars, I'll leave that to my mom to tell you. But
Nobody's getting in trouble here, folks. Now, yo, so let me know right here. Why was Comixology then the originals the right platform for this story for you?
Honestly, they were able to pay the team like a livable wage. Like I wanted real rates for my collaborators because I wanted a
Yeah,
great team. You know,
salute.
we had and Comixology from the very beginning. I mean, I had my first conversation with Chip, who used to run Comixology. He was there at the time. He was just like, I love this idea that like this is exactly the kind of books we want to do. And then I sent him the first issue. He read it like within 20 minutes and wrote back and said, let's do it. So they were always on board conceptually. And then I was able to get the budget. You know, a lot of times everybody's taking a hometown discount to do it at different publishers, and it's hard to live. And we were in the middle of pandemic trying to find a living wage for everyone. I wanted to make sure they would back us, and they did. Comixology has been really supportive, and yeah, it's been a great experience.
I'm glad to hear that there's some publishers out there that know how to take care of the creators. Awesome. That makes me feel good. Salute. Thank you for saying that. Fuck, that's right. You could pick up your copy of this book at Amazon.com/Comixology. She's running on Fumes. You get them all. You know what I mean? Don't wait for the trade. Do one on the issue, one per, and then you could get a trade too. Then you get everything else because I'm sure Dennis is gonna go on a wild tour, for this year. Because then, the streets are getting hot, baby. So, Dennis, what are you gonna do? Are you touring? What cons are you gonna be at? We got to get some signatures going. What's up? Where you gonna be?
It's been a hot minute actually since I've only been doing my local show, which is Planet Comic Con here in Kansas City, since COVID. Like since the start of COVID, I used to travel and do a ton of
You
cons.
retired since COVID. Wow, come on, bro.
Yeah,
You,
I, well,
you got to
I
come
have
back,
two, I
bro.
have two 9-year-olds and a 7-year-old. Man, it's hard to do anything on the weekend that isn't
Uh,
close by. But yeah, especially when the print edition is out, it's hard to sell digital copies at a con. But yeah, once we get a print edition out, I'll definitely do either a store tour or con tour for that. But that's all down the road.
excellent. Now, Free Comic Book Day passed recently. Did you do anything for Free Comic Book Day?
I attended. I went up and talked to some buddies that were doing Elite Comics here in
Oh,
Oakville
nice.
Park, but no, I wasn't set up this year.
Any
My kids
pickup?
had a basketball game.
Any cool pickups for Free Comic Book Day for you that you were excited about? Or did you just go there to say hello and salute the fans and
I didn't
wave?
even go in the store. The line was around the corner, so
Oh,
there was
oh,
stuff
I
I wanted to
love it.
get.
Look at that.
Yeah,
Hey, good support for the LCSs. I mean, I wish it was like that all the time, you know.
right.
But it's wonderful that at least they do show support, and I hope that they just buy stuff too and not just get the freebies.
That seemed to be the case. Yeah, that they were people were bringing stuff out that wasn't free.
I love that. I love that. So, what type of advice would you give to somebody in the journey now? Because again, you now 20-year veteran. Let me say it again. 20-year vet, baby. I mean, yeah, you believe it. I mean, so talk about from then to now. What type of advice would you give somebody? Because I'm sure things have changed a bit.
Like someone that wants to be in the comic, that wants
And
to make comics.
yeah, I want to create comics. Especially because you got in one way. Is it the same now? What type of approach should somebody take? What type of advice would you give them?
You know, I would say make stuff that you want to make for you. Like, don't try to chase the market. Don't try to necessarily chase the big two career. I got a big two career like relatively quickly, relatively early on in terms of my publication, and that is a really fun job. But it's a job. Uh, Creating stuff that is yours, that you own, and that you can control. That's a part you should never let go. Like I'm not super prolific, so when I was doing Marvel work, I didn't have a ton of time to do creator own, and I wish I had taken that time because
Mm,
I think those things are really satisfying for the soul, and that's how you grow and
yeah.
try and experiment and do interesting things. And when you're doing that stuff, it's also easier to build your brand. Like you can go online and this isn't about Spider Woman; it's about Dennis Hopeless. I wish I had done more of that earlier in my career, so that I would have had the opportunities I'm having now,
Yeah.
earlier on and along the
Earlier.
way.
Yeah.
And now as opposed to 20 years ago, it's a lot easier to get yourself out in front of people. You can do an Instagram comic where you put up 4 panels every day and you can build an audience just from that.
Ooh.
And there's eyeballs on social media. There's a lot of digital comics options out there. So yeah, I would say just find your audience, build your brand, show people the kind of stories you want to tell, and then never let off that gas. Never turn it into a job because it's a really really fun passion project to have in your life, and try to keep that passion.
Absolutely agreed. All right. So lastly, besides she's running on Fumes, you know, I mean, I don't want you running on Fumes, but what are the next things that you're working on that we should be on the lookout for?
I've got a project I'm doing with Chris Grine. He's currently doing the Animorphs adaptations over at Scholastic, and we're going to do a middle grade book that I think we're going to kickstart this next year that we're working on. It's a thing we've been working on for like 15 years that we're finally getting around to doing. So yeah, my big focus after she's running is that.
So that means that none of your stories are going to be hopelessly left out. There's a chance that they will be brought up. Awesome. Look, he is digging into the crate. He has an endless bag of treats to bring us folks. 15 years. What's the next one? When you the story when he was 5 next. All right, this is what happened when I was 5.
Yeah.
You know, this is what I saw. I love it, man. You know, an amazing writer. You know, thank you for your journey, but the things that you're doing, the story you shared. I mean, you've been killing it since you've been in the game. So, you know, a big salute to that. I do hope you go back on the convention circuit, man. You know, rock out. You know, and we gotta feel the Weppaaaa in person, bro. Come on, all right?
Absolutely. You know, I'll be back. I'll be back for sure.
You got to come back for that Kickstarter because I'm definitely very interested in that. And is this your first kids kind of book? You know, for younger readers?
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's a project. That's why we didn't do it back then. Is we realized, oh, this is like a younger book for younger readers. We were trying to do an adult version of it, and I didn't have kids yet. So now Chris and I both have raised kids, and we get what they're into a little bit more, and we're like, oh, it's time to do this thing.
Hey, folks, you heard that. Be on the lookout. You know how you stay on the lookout for not just She's Running on Fumes, but all of his future projects. Check out his website at hopelesscomics.com. Of course, you can follow him on the socials. On IG, it is Dennis Hopeless Comics. On X, it is Hopeless Dent. And on TikTok, it is Dennis Hopeless. Yes, 3 different names, but they're all hands. Don't you worry, all right? And of course, you could pick up She's Running on Fumes and a whole lot more over at Amazon.com/comicsology. You know, issue 4 drops this week, all right? You're going to get the prior 3. You're going to want this book. I'm telling you, this is going to be a movie, right? Tell me, right? I mean, if you had a choice, would it be an animated feature, a movie, a mini series, like like a Netflix style 6-show series? What's going on? What would you want if this could be anything?
I would be thrilled with any of those things, but it's a story that is set in southern Missouri with some cars and a trailer and like 8 people. So it's a pretty cheap thing to do live action. I think in terms of serialized fiction, so it'd be cool to see it as like a mini series. But anybody out there that wants to adapt this thing, I'm on board.
You heard. Let's manifest it. Let's make it happen because She's Running on Fumes is definitely fire. It's going to keep you running on for sure because I need to read the next 2 and see what the heck happens. Obviously, my man survives because we have him here, but let's see what happens within that book. It is, in fact, fire. Yo, Dennis, thank you so much for your time. I absolutely appreciate it. And my Crusaders, thank you for tuning in. All of you, y'all rock. Hasta la próxima, mi gente. Weppaaaa! Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.shop and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.